G'day friends and fans, and welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 23rd of October 2025. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Osbound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. Part 1 out now, Part 2 coming soon. Thank you to all those who support the channel. You can support the channel through the links in my link tree. Really? Zelensky needs an enema. Though I think if you gave this guy an enema, there'd be nothing but a meat suit left behind. And some saline bags that he calls muscles. Although one will look like a dildo, because he is one. Alrighty then. The EU is poised to agree on how to steal from Russia and give it to Ukraine. Of course, the 300 billion that Brussels have is going to be 140 billion by the time it gets to Ukraine. So Zelensky's getting less than half. Plus it's allegedly a loan. Because he's not going to repay it. Ukraine's not going to repay it. EU's not going to repay it. Everybody's going to pretend it's reparations. But there is not agreement. This is all copium. Every day they're trying to gin up support for stealing. And sooner or later, sanctions are going to start rolling in against Europe, and that'll be the end of the show. I think right now, however, China isn't in a good position, and that US technically probably won't care about sanctions from BRICS. So it's just going to bitterly divide the world, but Europe will definitely suffer because of its Euro-fascism. However, Trump has expressed his patience is wearing thin. He's expressed his frustration that there has not been progress. Now, I would say there was some progress. There was some talks, there was some handovers of bodies, there was some drawing up of agreements. But I think Trump is taking out his frustrations on the wrong party. Although, yes, Putin could have agreed with Trump's ceasefire, made arrangements, and shown the world that Zelensky is the one, once and for all, that did not want peace. Instead, he jumped the gun on it again. The whole point of intelligence isn't there to just point to it and say, but intelligence says no. Intelligence is to give you forewarning so you can do foreplanning, not so that you can excuse your behavior, because nobody believes intelligence, okay? Nobody believes your CIA reports. Nobody believes your FBI reports. Nobody believes the Mossad, the FSB, British intelligence. It's all a game of liar. And right now, I think most of the audience is calling liar on all these intelligence reports. So, Russia missed a golden opportunity and now have a 19th sanction package. Trump has expressed his desire to end the war by pressuring the Russia's oil and gas industry, the first two targets being Lukoil and Rosneft, and he has cited two reasons. One, the refuse to end the war, and a lack of serious commitment to the process. And yes, you can say a wave of drone attacks is a lack of that. Now, again, what Russia should have done is wait for Ukraine to do something. Start a freezing of the front. But I think the generals probably refused because they do have momentum in some areas, but not in everywhere. Okay? Putin should have announced a wrapping up of operations to prepare for a ceasefire, though people would have said he was stalling. If you could have got something, and then watch as Zelensky breaks it and starts his rants about not giving up any land and launching drones and missiles at Donetsk. And then Putin himself shows up in the UN and says, look, we did everything you asked for. You really have... I honestly think, right, when it comes to geopolitics, Trump does it, but not as much as others. Putin makes the same mistake as Keir Starmer, and that is preempting everything. Want to show how smart you are, how omniscient you are. Like, you can't do anything to us because we will always, doesn't matter. All right? Israel tried to be clever. Okay? Every country that's tried to be clever is got their foot in their freaking mouth. As people say, if you're always preempting trouble, how do we know there is trouble? You're reacting to shadows on a wall. How do you know that these shadows aren't being painted by intelligence to create problems? But yes, Ukraine is showing its willingness to create problems, but just because they show off a boat with a dumbass grenade launcher on it and another boat with a what appears to be rockets laying flat, totally useless, does not mean Russian intelligence can't can't find that on the map. Oh no, what's an image search? Oh no, where are this narrow coastline are they going to hide these boats? Up in one of these inlets where there's a boat ramp. One. Oh yeah, they could be further upriver. But the further up, how far upriver they are? Yeah. Not in Ukraine. That's right. It's all propaganda film. But Russia has struck Ukraine, though this power failure is from drone strikes on the power facilities in western Ukraine. There's been some strikes on Kiev, Sumy, Kharkiv, all the usual targets. Fighting in the buffer zone without any change. Frequently, fighting in the buffer zone results in no significant change. There's a little bit of change here. The Russians taking more territory in Vokhnasht. Not much territory. Fighting in the buffer zone above Kupiansk. Still fighting in Kupiansk over this intersection. Fighting in Sevest today. But no territory seized. But there was fighting in Sevest today. Now, to give you, I've got some images later to come, but I couldn't find Kramskos getting hit. Now, there was fighting in the south here. The Russians have made a little bit of progress. Fighting here, Russia's made some progress. Ukraine claiming a victory here at Kherson Yar. Questionable, but probably did halt the Russians, so give them the benefit of the doubt there. They have halted the Russians here before. They have halted the Russians again for now in Pokrovsk, but there's still fighting. And there's fighting in various areas to the north and west and east, and significant fighting, well, in the town, but no progress made in the town. We have only a little bit of redrawing of the map here, no significant progress here, a little bit of progress here, a little bit of progress here, but we're starting to get into stalled territory. Now, Russia shelled Nikolaev. There's been a power outage on the Russian side. Bit of artillery on fighting across the river here at Kherson. Nothing significant has changed. No significant attacks on Russia by Ukraine. No significant, particularly in Crimea. The amount of attacks on Crimea have dramatically decreased. Where's this Neptune that Ukraine keeps barking about? Up in smoke. Literally blowing up. Okay, we don't know how many, but we know Ukraine's losing assets and getting increasingly desperate for money. Which is probably why now I'm surprised that China was named. Now, China's been hit with a sanction. Pardon me. As years of smoking, I get low oxygen very quickly. Sorry. Alright, so the Chinese authorities have launched a formal complaint with the World Trade Organization over a European Union sanction that included Chinese companies in their 19th package of anti-Russian sanctions. This is a strong protest. There may be retaliatory sanctions. Beijing has promised conversations with the US and the United States. the EU and the United States about its trade with Russia. Now, this is a ban on LNG from Russia from two companies. China and India are their biggest customers. And right now, we have only Maria Zakharova replying from the Russian foreign ministry. She's a spokesperson, not a diplomat. She's pointing out that though there are no hurdles to the US deal, she's saying there's still a difficult, painstaking work to be done. They are claiming that they are trying to make progress, And this is difficult, painstaking work that should not be carried out on podiums, leaks, fake news, but diplomats, through genuine diplomatic efforts, official channels. I think there are liars and leakers. Bolton, CNN, armchair quarterbacks, CNN, fake news, CNN. But the Hungarians are still trying to organise the summit. So we have a little bit of ray of sunshine on the peace process. However, Belgium has not caved into the EU pressure, that is the pressure from France, Germany and the UK, to do a reparations loan for now they're claiming it's 140 billion euro, okay, $160 out of 300 billion. So, sorry, I apologise, it's only slightly over half of Russia's frozen assets go to Kiev. The rest, of course, is probably divided between France, Britain and Germany. And Belgium saying, no, our currency clearing organisation won't be used by China. Now, China's de-dollarising, and we're going to shift to euros for trade with Europe. They are now looking at remittances in yuan in Shanghai and Hong Kong. So Brussels has stepped on a rake, hit themselves in the face, backed up, and now are hesitating to step forward. But behind them is France, Germany, Britain, pushing them to, yet again, step on the rake, thinking that, it's only going to hurt Brussels, which means more for us. No, it doesn't. They're going to do their remittances in Shanghai and Hong Kong. That's not Brussels, not London, not Paris. You're just shooting yourself in the foot. And then, to cure you shot yourself in the left foot and saying, oh, well, to stop the pain, I'm going to shoot myself in the other foot. Now, there's vast amounts of money in many countries. Europe is risking its own financial stability. Italian Prime Minister is pointing this out. There's a danger behind this loan. The global financial system will shut down. They will cut out. Okay? Some countries will cut out Euroclear. And that means not just Euroclear. That means Germany. That means Paris. France, Germany and England will be also cut out. They're not going to just punish Brussels. They're going to punish the buffoons in the EU who are voting for this. It doesn't mean that Europe is dumb, but they definitely need smarter governments right now than the ones they've got. Now, overnight, a bunker was hit near Kiev, according to Russian news. Russian news claims this comes from Sergei Liberov, who is the coordinator for the pro-Russian network. This is a network of people who provide targets to Russia and confirm the Russian strikes in Ukraine. This was a Sikorsky International. This was a drone engine plant near Sikorsky International Airport. These strikes were a response to Russia's attack on civilians in Belgrade yesterday, where they set fire to an entire town. Now, the Kiev's war machine does depend on power grids for its factories, communications, drones. Drones need powerful transmitters. I mean, you look, your average drone ain't going far. You can actually see them 200 meters away starting to drift because they're not getting your signal. So you think they're going to go 75 miles without, unless they got really powerful transmitters? Of course they aren't. And lots of them. They probably have, because don't forget, jamming. So to overcome jamming, they need lots of transmitters sending signals. And special algorithmic processors to filter out the noise of the jamming. Here we have footage of a Russian T-80 BVM. This is a battle tank. It went to town. As you can see, the town was painted red. And it turns out there were 2 NATO MRAPs waiting for it. Now, they are crewed by Ukrainians, allegedly. This is a mine-resistant anti-ambush, a mine-resistance ambush protection vehicle. So these are frontline vehicles meant to go in and deal with ambushes. Okay? Now, they are equipped with a light machine gun, but they do carry an anti-tank tow. Now, oops, music. All right, then we have, here's the T-80. She comes in for the T-80 is coming into town, and she's ambushed by the Ukrainians up here. But straight away, the first shot's fired, and this sets off their smoke canisters. Common tactic. Now the tank, of course, turns, knowing that there is an ambush waiting for them, probably anti-tank weapons. They're reloading, and they see the second one as the smoke clears, and they immediately put one up its nose as well. And the tank continues out of town. Now, the T-80 is slightly on the heavy side, but it's more maneuverable than the T-90 in some aspects. This is, of course, as you can see, dry ground. The 2 vehicles, one clearly has blown out the back. Here as well, the Ukrainian soldiers waiting in ambush using the vehicles as cover. What was hit here was probably the roadblock between the 2 vehicles. It's clearly on fire, probably tyres by the black burning. Now the vehicle, its fire spread to the vehicle's tyres. This vehicle's front tyres are on fire as well. This vehicle is blown out. Now there is various other interpretations going around claiming the Ukrainians ambushed and captured this tank. Does it look like the Ukrainians captured this tank? Well, this guy might be getting up. Nope. He's not. None of them are moving. I'm sorry, but are you telling me those guys captured a Russian tank? Well, there's no proof in the initial video that it got away either. But I'm pretty sure that Ukraine did not ambush and capture a T-80. I think selectively editing, definitely you can get the interpretation from the usual AI overlays that the Ukrainians use, saying that in an exchange of fire, and then they blur everything out with smoke, and then continue just weaving a story and having you fill it in with your imagination. That's how propaganda works. They want you to feel good about supporting the Ukraine war, so they will provide you with propaganda of victory after victory. And if you enter into a parasocial relationship with Ukraine, start identifying with the Ukrainian side, feeling empathy or sympathy for their cause, that parasocial relationship can stir your paranoia, your imagination, your deep-seated resentment. You can unload your frustrations on Russia and feel good because you have social approval now. And so with this newfound kinship, you further identify with each victory as a personal victory, though you and your life will not be better if Russia had indeed lost that T-80, or if indeed what would be better for you, what would have changed had these Ukrainians lived. Of course, the preferable outcome to this was these two Ukrainians living, and this Russian tank not coming in the town, but that is beyond our control right now, because both Zelensky and President Putin cannot sit down, because there is no point for Putin to sit down, because Zelensky is going to sit there with his arms crossed like a good little Bolshevik and claim that he's the oppressed and that he will not give up an inch of land and that he wants more sanctions on the Russian shadow fleet, on the ties with China, Slovakia, going even after Poland. Anybody who isn't 150 million% cucked by Ukraine. But the Russian goals remain unchanged. They have not changed their statement, according to Maria Zakharovia, But Dmitry Medvedev has accused Trump of aligning himself with the loony left of Europe. Al Jazeera claims US measures would be very painful and has hurt the economy, but admits that Russia is developing immunity. Now, there's a collaboration between Russia and India still, and yet sanctions do not appear. And here's the problem. No territorial concessions. So what you clearly don't know how war works. But of course, this is the problem. They want you to play the libtado game, where every war is we go in, we fuck things up, we kill a lot of people, then we leave. Why? So we could do it again and again. It's a game to them. Russia's not treating this like a game. They have laid out guarantees, not just to the people of the Donbass and Zaporozhye and Crimea, but also to the border regions of Ukraine, that they will fuck up the Ukis and keep them out and will not back off. And that is the only reason why Putin got permission to go ahead. Because the majority of Russian politicians says, no, we don't want a Yeltsin compromise. Okay? We compromised in Afghanistan. We compromised in Georgia. They almost compromised in Chechnya, but Putin stuck to his guns there. But Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Turkmenistan, and a couple of other places were difficult situations in which greater global conflict would have been inevitable because there are just too many global oil interests, and OPEC and others were looking to turn against Russia as well. Right now, BRICS is unstable but survivable, okay? China could take a few hits on BRI still and probably still cling on to its ports in. And that's what we really should be looking at. Not the war, but the events around the war which people are ignoring. Like Pakistan, like China in Nigeria, Sudan, Angola, Sri Lanka, Venezuela, Brazil on shaky ground, Venezuela offering President Trump a bribe to stop attacking drug boats, Colombia claiming they weren't drug boats, and then Trump giving him the middle finger by showing him the barrels of chemicals floating in the water being recovered by the US, and showing that some of these barrels had drugs and money and chemicals, and really rubbing his nose in it and saying that he's in the pocket of the cartels, telling the Mexican government that they're not interested in peace and that he doesn't need them to wipe out the cartels, and she's furious. And he told her to go pound sand. You know, she actually banned pictures of her because she looks like an old hag that throws children into ovens. My God. Where have we heard that story before? Oh yeah, Hansel and Gretel, the old hag into the woods. Child killer. That's what they claim. And she's furious about that. But the cockroach has no legs. Isn't that how the song goes? You know? Nothing to stand on? You haven't got a leg to stand on? Oh, that's true. She got no facts. Nobody's backing her. None of her generals will come out and say, look at our major victories. And every victory in Mexico against the cartels has been US backed. So, Ukraine is a mess, of course. It's a geopolitical mess. But President Trump, I think, people understand. He is He's taking the chainsaw and going straight through the noise. But before he can deal with Zelensky, he must have Putin be to sit on the sidelines, take a few hits on the chin, so that the world will then say to Zelensky and Europe, are you insane? Until, because Russia doesn't want to blow up London or Brussels or Paris or Berlin. Kiev, maybe not so much. But you got to understand, if you keep provoking them, it's you who do not understand the nature of war. If you keep bleating about Russia, they're winning. They've won in parts. You can bring a halt to this war, but you can't reverse it. Zelensky is a genocidal maniac, and I know nothing will convince some of you that that is true. Others are starting to wake up to that fact. Others will never wake up to that fact. That is the danger of politics. It rots your brain. You cannot look at things objectively. You always have to filter it through some political lens because the world doesn't make sense to you. And it doesn't make sense to you because you're immature. You expect to get your way every day, even when you have no clue what you're talking about. You just saw it in the news. And because you have some political fascination with power and manipulation, you pick the political narrative that the news tells you to pick because you want to be part of the social club. The Mean Girls table. In reality, the Californian morons who think they know everything about every subject. Geopolitics is so complicated. I probably missed a lot today. But you watch CNN and your brain will completely rot. They miss so much every day that's going on. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. Support me on Ko-Fi. Buy my books, buy my merch. Of course, don't forget there's Patreon. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile. Scan the QR code on the screen. And of course, see you in the next video, and bye for now.